Okay, so like imagine this. You're back in high school, right? And, there's a fight,
Yeah, yeah.
hormones and everything. Someone says the wrong thing, it happens.
Yep.
But what if I told you those kids could face like actual criminal charges?
Oh, wow.
That's what's happening in Guyana. And we're diving into this article from Newsroom Guyana.
Okay.
And it was published today, so it's super relevant.
Wow.
And it lays this whole situation out.
Interesting.
So Guyana's Attorney General, Anil Mablal, he's making it clear that this is serious business.
Yeah, you don't get a free pass just because you're in school, right?
Right, no. Get out of jail free card. But the article also mentioned this thing called the Juvenile Justice Act.
Right.
Isn't that specifically designed for, like, juveniles?
Yeah, that's where it gets kind of confusing. So the act doesn't give minors a free pass.
Right.
It just means their cases are handled differently.
Mm-hmm.
They can still be investigated, charged, prosecuted, like the whole 9 yards.
Wait, so a teenager could actually end up with a criminal record for something that happened at school?
Yeah.
That seems pretty intense.
It is serious stuff. And Nandal is really emphasizing that point.
Okay.
He even uses the word impunity in the article
Yeah, saw that.
to really emphasize that these kids aren't exempt from consequences.
Right, but you mentioned this different framework for juveniles.
Yeah.
So what makes juvenile justice different in Guyana?
Well, think of it this way. A 15-year-old's brain isn't the same as a 30-year-old's, right?
Right.
Their decision-making, their understanding of consequences, it's all still developing.
Uh-huh.
So while there's accountability, there's also this big emphasis on rehabilitation.
Gotcha.
It's about guiding young people back on track, not just punishing them.
So it's less about like throwing the book at them and more about giving them a chance to course correct.
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. So this isn't just some like abstract idea. This plays out in real life.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The article mentions an example from 2023. 2 teenage boys in Bardika got into a fight outside of school.
Right.
They ended up being questioned by police the whole bit.
Yep. These laws are very much in action.
Okay, that makes it way more real.
Yeah.
You mentioned some confusion earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Who exactly is misunderstanding how this all works?
Well, Nandal points out it's both sides.
Really?
Sometimes the young people themselves don't get how serious it is. And sometimes law enforcement can even be a bit fuzzy on how to apply the law in these situations.
So it's like a recipe for disaster if no one really knows how things should work.
Right, and that's why Nandal's statement is so important.
Okay, what did she say again?
He says, while we recognize their young age and the need for a different approach, they do not enjoy any form of impunity.
Right.
It's such a delicate balance.
Yeah.
We have to hold these young people accountable, but we also have to remember they're still learning and growing.
It's like walking a tightrope between tough love and understanding that teenagers will be teenagers.
Exactly. And, this different approach in juvenile justice, there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a fuzzy concept.
Right.
There are specific ways this plays out in the system.
All right, let's get into it. How does this system actually work in practice? Give me the inside scoop.
Okay, so let's get specific.
Okay.
In Guyana, one way they try to tailor the system to young people is through sentencing.
Mm-hmm.
So if a minor is found guilty, the focus often shifts away from harsh punishments and towards this thing called reintegrative shaming.
Reintegrative shaming.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of intense.
I know, right? It's less about making the kid feel terrible and more about helping them understand the harm they caused.
Okay.
Think community service, maybe even meeting with the people they affected.
Oh, wow.
It's about accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also about making amends and becoming a productive member of society.
So it's like acknowledging you messed up, but also giving you a pass back into the fold.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and beyond sentencing, there are these specialized courts specifically for juveniles,
Okay.
plus a big focus on diversion programs.
Diversion programs.
Yeah, these programs are designed to address the root causes of why a kid might be acting out.
Okay.
Could be counseling, family therapy, substance abuse programs, all kinds of things.
So basically trying to catch these issues early and provide support before a kid even ends up in court.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's like, why wait until things escalate to a crisis point if we can intervene and help them develop healthy coping mechanisms?
Right.
It's all about giving them the tools to make better choices in the future.
That makes a lot of sense. But even with these different approaches, this whole thing still feels really heavy.
Yeah.
We're talking about potentially life-altering consequences for kids who are still figuring things out.
It's true, and that's why this discussion is so important.
Mm-hmm.
We have to talk about these potential consequences, even if they're uncomfortable.
Right.
Even if a kid isn't convicted, just having their name in the system can follow them around.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. Like, what about college applications or getting a job later on. Does that kind of stuff come back to haunt them?
Unfortunately, it can. Background checks often include juvenile records.
Oh, wow.
And that can create obstacles.
Yeah?
Imagine being denied a job or a scholarship because of something you did when you were 15.
Yeah.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It's like a shadow hanging over them, even if they've learned from their mistakes and are trying to move forward.
Exactly. And beyond those practical impacts, we can't forget the emotional toll.
Right.
Think about the stress of being caught up in the legal system, even if you're innocent, dealing with police lawyers, court appearances.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly overwhelming, especially for a young person.
And that's on top of whatever's going on in their lives that might have led to the trouble in the first place.
Right. Family issues, peer pressure, mental health struggles. It's a lot to handle.
It is.
That's why ideally the juvenile justice system should be about helping these kids, not just punishing them.
Okay.
It should be about support, guidance, and giving them a real chance to turn things around.
So what you're saying is we need to view these young people as works in progress, not finished products.
Exactly.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah.
But teenagers especially are still learning and growing.
Absolutely. And you know, that brings us back to Nanlow's point about this different approach in juvenile justice.
Right.
It's not just about being soft on kids. It's about recognizing their developmental stage and providing appropriate support.
It sounds like the goal is to help them become productive members of society, not just punish them and potentially derail their entire futures.
Precisely. But here's the thing. This whole approach only works if it's actually effective.
Okay.
And that's where things get even more complicated.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. Spill the tea?
Yeah.
What makes you question the effectiveness of this system?
Well, you've got to consider the bigger picture here.
Yep.
It's not just about the individual kids. It's about the community as a whole. If young people are constantly being funneled into the criminal justice system, especially for relatively minor offenses, it can create a cycle of distrust and resentment.
That makes sense. Instead of building bridges, it's almost like building walls between law enforcement and the very people they're supposed to be protecting.
Exactly. And, you know, research shows that in many cases, harsh punishments actually increase the likelihood of reoffending.
Really?
Especially among juveniles.
So it's not even about being nice. It's about what actually works to reduce crime and create a safer society for everyone.
Right. It's about understanding that sometimes punishment alone isn't the answer.
So if not just punishment, then what's the alternative approach we should be aiming for here?
Well, it starts with addressing the root causes of juvenile delinquency. We can't just focus on the symptoms, you know.
Yeah.
We need to understand what's driving these behaviors in the first place.
So what kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, think about it. Kids aren't just born bad, right?
Yeah.
There are usually underlying factors at play. Maybe it's poverty, lack of access to education, exposure to violence at home or in the community.
Or even things like mental health issues.
Absolutely. Mental health plays a huge role, and unfortunately, it's often overlooked.
Yeah.
So this alternative approach involves investing in programs and resources that address these underlying issues.
So things like after-school programs, counseling services, job training.
Exactly.
Basically giving kids positive outlets and support systems.
Yeah, it's about creating a safety net, a sense of belonging, and opportunities for growth.
Yeah.
If a kid feels supported and valued, they're less likely to act out in destructive ways.
It sounds like we're talking about a whole societal shift here, not just tweaks to the legal system.
You got it.
It's about creating a more supportive environment for young people overall.
You hit the nail on the head. It's about a holistic approach.
Okay.
And, you know, it's not just about the kids themselves. It's about empowering families and communities to play a more active role.
Okay, I'm really interested in this.
Yeah.
How do families and communities fit into this equation?
Well, strong families are the foundation, right?
Right.
So providing resources and support to parents, helping them build strong relationships with their kids, that's crucial.
Okay.
And then it's about fostering a sense of community responsibility.
So not just seeing it as someone else's problem,
Exactly.
but recognizing that we all have a stake in the well-being of our young people.
It takes a village, right?
Yeah.
Mentorship programs, community centers, opportunities for kids to get involved in positive activities.
Right.
All of these things contribute to a healthier environment.
This is really making me think about how we often focus on punishment after the fact. But maybe we're not doing enough on the prevention side of things.
It's a common problem, and it's something Nandal seems to be addressing in this article.
Yeah.
He's not just talking about the letter of the law. He's emphasizing the need for a more nuanced and understanding approach.
He's acknowledging that kids are still developing, that they make mistakes, and that the goal should be to help them learn and grow,
Right.
not just punish them and potentially scar them for life.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where this idea of balancing accountability with compassion comes in.
Agree? We can hold young people accountable for their actions without resorting to harsh punishments that can do more harm than good. Wow. This has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
It has.
We've gone from schoolyard fights to the complexities of juvenile justice, the potential for lifelong consequences, and the need for a more holistic approach.
Yeah.
It's a lot to process.
It is. But it's also a topic that deserves our attention.
Yeah.
We can't just sweep these issues under the rug and hope they go away.
You're right. So as we wrap up, what's one key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
I think the biggest takeaway is this: when it comes to young people and the law, it's not about being tough or soft.
Okay.
It's about being smart, compassionate, and understanding that our actions have ripple effects that extend far beyond the immediate situation. We need to think long-term about what kind of society we want to create and how we can best support our young people to become thriving members of that society.
That's a powerful message. And listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked some critical thinking about juvenile justice, not just in Guyana, but everywhere.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing conversation and one that we all have a role in shaping. Thanks for joining us on this journey.